Good morning, Rabbi Rabotai. We are continuing on Shulchan Aruch Arachaim, and we are on Siman Petet, Seif Vav, and of Kuf Chaf Amud Bet of the regular prints of Mishna Berura, discussing the halachot of Tefillah. Maran writes, Afilu lilmod asur. We spoke about all the things that are not allowed to start once the time of Tefillah has arrived. Now you'll think you can learn at least. And Shulchan says no, you cannot even start learning after the time of Tefillah has started. That's not only for somebody that davens in his own private bet midrash. He doesn't have a minyan available to him, or he doesn't have a set minyan to go to. But if he has, if you have a set time for a set minyan, that you always go to this minyan, that is considered a proper heker, and therefore we're not choshesh you're going to forget and be drawn after your limud. But if you don't have that, we're going to be concerned about him being too involved in his learning, and one thing leads to another, and Torah is geschmack, before you know it, you look and you have missed the time of Shema, the time of Tefillah, and therefore we don't allow that to begin with. Now don't leave if you've heard this until we finish to say what the Kaf HaChaim has to say about this. But nevertheless, Maran writes, if you are teaching other people, if you are giving a shi'ur, even if you're not used to going to other Batei Knesset, or you don't have a minyan in your vicinity, is not able to walk, whatever the case may be, that's mutar for him not to daven b'tzibur, then it's mutar. Why? Kevan she'sha overet, the zechut arabim davar gadol hu, because the time is ticking, and if you don't teach now, then you're not guaranteed you could teach afterwards. And teaching the rabbim, bringing more Torah to the community, is a tremendous chutz, says Maran Shulchan Aruch. If you don't learn right now, they have to go to work, people have things to do, they have to do carpool, and then they're not going to end up learning. It's mutar to bend this halacha and be, of course, you're not bending halacha. The whole thing is chashash. The chashash, maybe you're going to forget. So be careful not to forget. Make yourself a heker, make alarm clocks, put your watch on your other hand, whatever it is that's going to help you not forget to say Shema on time. But nevertheless, we're going to allow this to happen. Now,
is that only for the one teaching, or also
for the one teaching? Now, Shulchan Aruch says pretty clearly that's asur to learn since the moment of Alot HaShachar, right? Now, there are those who say that it is mutar. Take a look at Seif Katan Lamed Aleph of Mishnah Berura. First of all, this is all starting to learn. If you already started to learn beforehand, then it's mutar. You don't have to stop. That's one. Two, the Mishnah Berura writes in Seif Katan Lamed Aleph, Mishegia, Haynu Shala Amud HaShachar, Aval Kodem Lazeh Mutar, Af Latchil, Uksheitchil Mimela Shu Eno Posek, In Lo She'areh She'avor Zman. Ve'yesh Mekilim Lechatchila Afilu Achar Shala Amud HaShachar. There are those poskim who are lenient, that even if Amud HaShachar has already arrived, Kol Zeman Shelo Higia Zeman Samuch Lenetz, so long as it's not the time right before the nets that you have to start saying the tefillah, shira'u leitpalel bo lechatchila, then you could be mekel. Writes the Kaf HaChaim that even though that kibalnu horaot Maran, and Maran seems to be pretty clear that since the moment of Alot HaShachar, you can no longer start to learn if you haven't started before. Writes the Kaf HaChaim, this is such a big deal, learning, that we are going to be somech against Maran Shulchan Aruch and the Shita of the Mekelim, and allow learning. Now, how long can you learn? It says, Kaf HaChaim, measure for yourself how much it takes to put on tefillin, talit tefillin, and start from Parashat Akedah and all the way until Netzach Hama. If it takes you, for instance, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, so that's the 40 minutes. Until 40 minutes before Netz, you could learn. Even if you're starting after Alot HaShachar. That's what the Kaf HaChaim writes, because the importance of this, especially limud of early morning, is tremendous. the tahara of the limud in the morning, and also the concept of learning before tefillah is a big thing, and therefore the Kaf Chaim allows it. The halakha Berura, David Yosef, he is machmir, like the simple understanding of the Shulchan Aruch, the after Arut Shachar, you can't. But again, the Kaf Chaim is one of the important poskim, and he seems to be lenient, putting a lot of weight on the learning before Shacharit. Now, the Mishnah Berura writes, Bebet Midrasho means you're davening biyachid. But if you have a minyan, like Chacham Obadia in your house, minyan gathers by you. You are the shul, right? Or you're starting to daven in the Bet Midrash. You're not learning at home. You're coming early to the shul, and you're learning at shul. So even if you get really orangutan in the learning and you get really involved in the learning, what's going to happen? People are going to come there and start the tefillah. So you're going to be reminded from the other people who come there, and therefore is not a problem. When they come, they'll remind him. Now, matrit begirse, the chashash that we have is that he's going to get too involved in his learning. Chayei Adam writes, we mentioned before, Chayei Adam was the mechutan of the Vilna Gaon. Their kids married each other. Shekatav afilu yesh lo shiur kavua, ma shelomed delek al mechash, kol kach shema yimashech b'limud afilu achi asur. Now it says the Chayei Adam, even if you have a set learning, you have to finish one perek of Mishnayot, one perek of Tanakh, whatever it is that you're learning, we're not choshesh that you got to be too drawn to the depth of the sugya. You're not learning be'iyun. You're learning, shiur kavua, daf yomi, you're learning. But he says, even with that, we're still machmir. Even though that you're not learning per se be'iyun, to look up things and sources and get involved and get all carried away, but nevertheless, we're still choshesh and we don't allow it, says the Chayei Adam. And therefore, someone that's on a journey, is traveling, or he lives in Yishuv, afilu bekayitz, afal gav shemitzvah litvolah b'shah she'atzibur mitpalelim. Even though that it is mitzvah to daven with the tzibur, mikol makom kevan she'asur lilmod kodem she'itpalel, because it is prohibited to learn before davening, mutav she'itpalel techef kedei shelo yitpatel minimudo. Best would be to daven earliest possible davening time, and then be able to sit and learn. Not this way, you would not be mitpatel mi limudo b'zman hazeh de'ovrei drachim al pi rov enam lomdim Torah. Nowadays, he says the people who travel all the time, the merchants, they're not necessarily, unfortunately, they're not lomdei Torah necessarily. They're not learning Torah on the way that they're traveling. Then they should not be allowed necessarily to daven biyachid early on, and the halacha should be for them, wait until you daven betzibur, even if it's the earliest minyan is 8 o'clock, and you're not learning from 6 to 8, still, you should wait for the tzibur. It should have been mikol makom kevan shenimshach mizeh sheovrim zman kriyas shema. But because of this, many times they miss the time of Shema. But if amim gan zman tefillah, sometimes they even miss zman tefillah if they wait for the tzibur, depending on what place they're in. And nowadays, unfortunately, this happens also. There are certain towns, certain cities that they do have a minyan, but their minyan is very shvach. It's only 10 people, and you have to wait there, and then they start relying on the Vilna Gaon, and even further than that, and you end up missing the Zman Shema of Magen Avraham, and the proper Zman Tefillah. They're somech to daven after Zman Tefillah, depending on the denomination that they have, and so on. That's also not kedai. Better to daven. I remember once we went many years ago, about 23 years ago, went to a certain place, a certain town, that the only minyan that they had started at 10 a.m. on Shabbat. That was the only minyan that they had. They got together, they finished the Tehillim, shockingly in 1 hour, the entire Kilat, finished the entire Tehillim from 9 to 10. And I had the minyan, so I davened Musaf v'tzibur, but Shacharit I davened Netz. This way you have maybe the Chafetz Chaim's psak or the Rabbi Yashiv's psak that you could do and beforehand even biachid. But nevertheless, that's the reason the Chafetz Chaim says, therefore, lachen yizaharu shetechef bekumam kodem she'as'u b'shum davar yitpalelu. When they wake up, if they could nets, kol hakavod. Otherwise, even David biachid, says the Chafetz Chaim, and don't take a chance of missing Zman Tefillah. In larger cities, of course, they have an early minyan. You could have it with them. It's always going to be b'sha'ah sibur mitpalelin, at least. Ad kan neshuna. This is the Chayei Adam. V'yir'eh lesamsem be'et she'mevarech al ha'tefillin she'yachol la'akir et chavero. Even if you're davening early because you're a businessman, you're a merchant, you should at least be careful that your talit and tefillin should not put before the time of talit and tefillin, which is Mishakir. Mishakir, Rabbi Heinemann used to say always that it's about 35 minutes before Netzach Hama. Others, depending on how you cheshbon it could be earlier than that. But nevertheless, at least there should be enough light, natural light, that without artificial lights you would be able to recognize a person that you know, even though that you're not close friends, but you know them from 6 feet away. So it says the Mishnah Berura, if you have a guard, somebody that's not learning, it's just sitting there, and you say, look, I want to start learning, you be my shomer, you guard me, make sure I don't miss Zman Tefillah, Zman Shema. When it gets to 6 o'clock, you wake me up from my limud, k'mishene or mi mishnato, right? Wake me up from my limud, alert me that I should not miss the Zman Tefillah. Then, says the Chafetz Chaim, in that scenario, sheim yitaret begirsa yaskireu shelo ya'avor zman, mutar lilmod. Then it is mutar to learn. And on this piece of Shulchan Aruch, that the teacher has a special blanket heter, says the Mishnah Berura, Davka im lo ya'avor zman kriyat Shema. Of course, we're talking about the case that the shiur is happening early in the morning. Is not a shiur that passes zman kriyat Shema. You have no allowance to pass zman kriyat Shema because you're teaching. That doesn't trump Zman Kriyat Shema. The Miyaresh Yavor Hazman, if you're afraid and concerned that the Zman is going to pass, Mechuyav Likrota, of course you're obligated to do it before your shiur, stop in the middle of shiur, whatever it takes. This is something that he's going to be discussing later on, and we're going to do one more Seif in Shulchan Aruch over here, Seif Zayin. Mutar, Maran says, Lehistaper v'likanes lemerchas samuch l'shacharit. It is mutar to take a haircut and to take a shower, to go to the merchatz, samuch l'shacharit, right before shacharit, shelo gazru ela samuch lemincha. The gezerah of Chachamim that's mentioned in Mishnah Masechet Brachot is only before time of mincha, shehu davar hamatzui, because that is something that happens all the time. When was the last time you got a haircut before shacharit? Right? When was the last time you went to the public bathhouse? Now, I'm putting my 2 cents in here because we don't use public bathhouses. We have showers, private bathhouses and showers. So that's a little bit different over here. We have to study why this is mutar, right? Why is this not considered doing your tzarachim before the tefillah? That's something that we have to discuss right now. So it says the Mishnah Berura, but this is again, this Shulchan Aruch is a clear Rambam. Rambam says this in Chot Tefillah, and it's based on his understanding of the Gemara. Maral Shulchan Aruch paskins it. Now the Mishnah Berura writes, Davka samuch l'shacharit hainu kodem she'ala al mutashachar. Says Maran, this is not talking about after alot hashachar, of course, because once it hits alot hashachar, we're talking about within the half an hour before alot hashachar. But if he has already hit alot hashachar, what's the problem? The problem is you can't take a haircut before davening because that's doing your needs, and that would be not allowed. Davka samuch l'shacharit. It's not time of shacharit. It's samuch l'time of shacharit. It's half an hour before alot hashachar. That's mutar. Aval misha'ala alot hashachar. Already, if alot hashachar already has happened, then it's not mutar. Even that is asur. And the Pri Megadim writes that being a judge, being a dayan, doing a din Torah, and also doing bursaki and seudah, the other items that are mentioned in Mishnah Masach Brachot for Tfilat Mincha, asur samuch l'shacharit kemo samuch l'mincha. Those things are asur even before shacharit, writes the Rabba, and the reason for it is because those are things that are much more involving than a regular haircut, and therefore it will be asur. Now, the Oratzion writes that it's not only haircut, but you can't shave your face either. Many people wake up in the morning, and part of the morning routine is they shave. So, for those who do shave, writes the Oratzion, you cannot do that prior to tefillah, after Alot HaShachar, because that's considered asiyat sarachav. That's considered also your personal things, personal needs. So therefore, this is not now. This back in the day used to be a much bigger chumrah because there was no self-contained battery shaver. Remember, 85 years ago when we were growing up, shavers were only plug-in. There's no such a thing as a self-contained battery rechargeable thing, and therefore it was a problem. People couldn't do it in the car or in the bathroom of the shul after davening necessarily, right? But nowadays people they're if whether or not it's mutar to do while driving, if you're actually driving, not behind the red lights, a whole different thing. For dinat malachut dina and nishmartem mod nafshetechem, you don't want to kill anyone while driving. But many people right now, they do it because of this or letzion. They don't do it before at home. They do it afterwards, either at shul or in the car, in order to not be involved in their personal needs before shacharit. Now, how about taking a shower nowadays? Is that anything like the merchatz of the time of Chazal, or is it not? Now, there are those who write that nowadays that is mutar, because the rechitza of a shower, you're waking up, you're getting yourself ready for tefillah, and that's just fine. It's not something that is any challenge to halacha, especially if you're using it, the miklachat as a mikveh. For those who don't go to mikveh and you want to be machmir like Tfilat Ezra, like the Hasidim do, but the Hasidim actually go to the mikveh. It's not, you don't want to do that. You want to do a miklachat, as we discussed before, that can be considered like the tish'a kabin that a person could replace with mikveh for men. And that's derech arai. It's not like beta merchas. People went once a week, once a month, whatever it is that they. And it was a whole production, and it also was dangerous because the way they had it was a bath. It was a massive public bath, and beneath it, under the ground level, was fire. So you were sitting in a kli rishon basically. Right? And sometimes the weight and the structure was not as strong, and you fell in. The Gemara talks about that, and Rabbi Yochanan saving people when the whole thing broke loose and went down. It was they would make a bracha after coming out for having survived the experience. With all the hevel and the heat and the steam, the sauna feel that he had. It was not like nowadays you go in, you come out. It shouldn't take more than 7 minutes for a shower, beginning to end, right? Bitul Torah, Haval al-Zman, right? But the whole thing is arai. So therefore, says, for instance, Rabbi Yosef in Halacha Berura says mutar, no problem. It's not like the rechitza of the time of Chazal that was done in Tamir Chatz. They had actually someone, a balan, that would come and clean your back and clean your foot. It was a whole thing. It's not nowadays. It's not like that. Now, there are others who are not so sure about this. They say that only if the rechitza is when you want to daven beguf naki. In other words, you want to use this as a tefillah as well. You don't have a guf naki. You want to have a guf naki. Then it's a hachana for tefillah. Then it's mutar. This is actually Rabbi Yosef's brother, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef. That's why he writes. He's more stringent in this, and if you have it for other reasons, it's just pleasure. He's not so okay with it. And similar to this is written by Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu as well. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach writes The regular shower is mutter with soap. Maybe it's more questionable. But again, especially in the United States, when it's part of the routine of getting ready in the morning, so you have to wake yourself up for davening or for limud before tefillah, and that's what gets your mind ready. So that's a hachana for limud, hachana for tefillah. That's something that is, of course, more room to be mekel. But Zat Hashem, we will continue this in the days to come.